Well, good evening, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to council meeting number 16 for Tuesday, June 14, 2024. I will call the meeting to order. And Councillor Vic had to get called away on a family matter very suddenly, so he sends his regrets. I'd like to recognize that we meet on the traditional territory of the LHTAKO DENE Nation. Before I ask for a motion to approve the agenda, we have quite a convoluted agenda tonight. We have 6 late items. I2 is a committee report from the Financial Sustainability and Audit Committee, and Councillor Elliott will be reporting on behalf of Councillor Vic on that particular item. K3, staff reports, potential moose sculpture donation, and that there'll be a report from Director Bolton on that one. That's K3. N4 is bylaws, City of Quesnel zoning amendment, bylaw 1964, final adoption, ministry signed copy. Other late agenda items is F1 delegation, Quesnel Pride Society, Julia Dillabough, President, and we're also going to move item M2, which is correspondence from the Quesnel Pride Society immediately after the delegation. And there's a council report as a late item, the 2020, and this is from Councillor Rudenberg, the 2024 North Central Local Government Association event report. So with those changes, could I get a motion to adopt the agenda as amended? Councillor McKelvey, Councillor Goulet, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. So now we'd like to get a motion to adopt the minutes of the last regular meeting held May 21, 2024. And before we do that, I'd just like to go to the minutes, and on page, I've got a new agenda here, so it's on page 7 of the revised agenda, resolution number 2414-152, and this has to do with the water treatment project. And it was duly moved, seconded, and carried that Council receives this report for information and directs staff to seek funding sources that would assist to undertake this capital project. And that was a capital project aimed squarely at chlorination. And I recall that we were asking if we could get some more detail on alternative treatment methods in addition to chlorine. I don't know if anybody picked up on that, and I'm wondering if that's the case, could we get a motion or clarification as to whether we are going for chlorine only or whether we are going to take a pause and at least consider other water treatment options. The floor is open if anybody would like to jump in. Councillor Runge.
So my understanding was that we were going to move forward with the chlorination report to make sure that we hooked onto the funding, and at that time we were going to look at other options. I believe that's roughly how it went. But we wanted to move forward. We didn't want to hold on to things because that would just move us back by another X number of months or years.
Okay, I understand that. Does anyone have any interest in getting something on the official record that speaks to the fact that we are interested in at least looking at other options rather than just moving ahead with chlorine only? Councillor McKelvey.
I recall that we were going to look at other options as well, not just chlorine, and I would definitely recommend that we look at other options as well as chlorinating our water.
I wonder if I could get some help from staff here as to how we handle that. But should we just adopt the minutes immediately and then immediately put in a resolution that that we're looking, or that we'd like to look at other options? Go ahead, Carrie.
Of course, council in the past has looked at other options, and the chlorination method was the method that was chosen. But we can come forward and just bring an update on those various other options to give council some overview.
Okay, I wonder if we could just have a comment in the minutes to that effect, rather than messing around trying to make new motions. Would that work? Okay, so now then I will entertain a motion to adopt the minutes as presented. Councillor Runge, you're moving, and Councillor McKelvey is seconding. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Now I'd like to get a motion to adopt the minutes of the public hearing held May 21, 2024. Councillor Rudenberg moves, and this is what is known as the pregnant pause. Councillor McKelvey is seconding. Is there any discussion? Are we all in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay, the next item is delegations, and Julia Dillabough, as the president of the Quesnel Pride Society, is joining us tonight. So, Julia, come on up and press the button, and the floor is yours.
Oh, don't say that too loudly. I might start dancing. You know, it's Pride Month, so you got to start dancing, right, Scott? Thank you, Mayor and Council, for inviting us today and having us be a late discussion. I'm Julia Dillabough, president of the Quesnel Pride Society. This year, you know, I didn't bring as many friends, so you're welcome. Not a full packed gallery. I brought a couple, though. We felt like it was important to have this conversation and educate council as to what it is that we've done over the past year and what we're continuing to do. So over the past year, we've been doing a bit of rebuilding in our board. We currently have 9 board members, and from all walks of life, whether they be from the LGBTQ society, community directly, or our allies. We're currently looking for 2 more directors, and we've got 2 more hopefully on the hook to bring that up to 11. Throughout this rebuilding stage, we've been able to pull off a great 2023 Pride, and that was not without its issues and concerns through social media trolls. It was quite concerning throughout the conversations that we were having with RCMP prior to. But we pulled it off. We received a great amount of support from our sponsors last year, and we were able to increase our security needs within the park and the other events that we've put on. So I'd like to also give a huge, huge shout out to the Quesnel RCMP, who went above and beyond during the parade to make sure that everybody was safe and we were all able to have a fun experience. Having said that, the event was not without physical haters. We had people driving by crowds of people screaming out slurs and hateful comments at groups of people standing on the outsides of the buildings. The parade has an estimated 400 people march in it each year, and it continues to grow with the queer community, and even more importantly with allies marching along with. Each year, the Quesnel Pride Society applies for grant funding. Unfortunately, we were not able to secure our Quesnel Community Foundation grant this year, which helped to help us pull off prides each year for the past couple of years. But local sponsors are definitely stepping up once again to help us pull off Pride, which is June 15th, just coming up. So, you know, those out there in the crowds in the Ethernet world, if you'd like to sponsor, we are contact at Quesnel Pride Society, or quesnelpride.ca. So that's contact at quesnelpride.ca. We did receive our TransCare grant, TransCare BC grant again, and this money goes directly into trans, non-binary, two-spirited, and questioning counseling for adults and youth. This year, we also plan to partner with other Quesnel groups to help develop the ways that we can provide that funding to members within the community. So that's essentially free counseling for those that are trans, non-binary, two-spirit, or questioning, which is 100% necessary in the society that we live in today. Between last September and April, we were also able to host a few of our Rainbow Connection events that we host at the DENE. This allows for the queer community to gather in a safe space, including allies, where we play games, sing karaoke, mingle, and meet new friends in a safe space. We saw a growth in patrons attending, which was pretty amazing. First event, we were at roughly about 20 people, and the last event, we actually had to, we do non-alcoholic beverages for people that come, and they each get at least one, and we had to pretty much shut it down because we had 50 people attend, which we were not expecting at just one of our little Rainbow Connections. People may ask, why do we need this? Why do we need Pride? Why do we need those books in those libraries about two moms, two dads, and couples of diversity? Why do we need that crosswalk? Now, I bet the people that are asking those questions aren't really posing it in the way that I did just so nicely. It is because society has really not grasped the nature of what queer youth and adults go through. Queer youth are at higher risk of being disowned by their families, experimenting with drugs, sustaining mental and physical abuse by their peers and their family members, attempting and achieving suicide. I personally have had friends beaten within an inch of their life for being gay, friends disowned, family members and friends experimenting with drugs and not returning from it. And this is at a disproportionate rate compared to those that do not identify as queer. And this is just a little bit of what my life has seen. I cannot only imagine what the rest of the community has seen. We need a council that supports diversity and inclusion. When a council member says they do not want to be offending a specific group, I feel it is better not to say anything at all, rather to regather your thoughts and come at it from a more diplomatic way. When we talk about books being present in libraries without further consultation from groups that the books represent, it tears down our community, further alienating those groups. From our city council, we expect more. We as humans all look for something to connect with, often through symbolism, whether that be a flag or a gold pan. The crosswalk is not just a crosswalk. It is a symbol of inclusivity, a symbol that is loud and proud for life, healing, sunshine, nature, harmony, and spirit. It has grown to further encompass others that have been discriminated against. For the queer community, it is not just about the finances, it is about being part of a welcoming community. It is not just a crosswalk to the queer community. It shows newcomers to Quesnel that they should be safe to purchase a home here, to own a business, to raise their families in a safe space. To grow a community, we need inclusion. That is what the crosswalk and other symbols represent to the queer community. A decision in support of the crosswalk was agreed to upon on May 21st by the City Council members, and the Quesnel Pride Society appreciates and thanks the Mayor and Council for this action. Through our conversation with the public works managers, we were able to come up with a solution that worked for us and came up within the city's budget. For this year, it will help for the future costs as well. Again, we appreciate the approval. However, it is concerning that a member of the council proceeded to engage a queer community member at their place of work, stating that they should pay for the crosswalk to be repainted. I would like to ask, if a decision is being made final at council meeting, is it right for a council member to engage a community member in this manner? To me, I don't think this follows council protocol. This type of action is further demeaning and unnecessary, and it shows that we do not have true inclusivity in this community. With this, I'd like to move to the letter that I provided to City Council. I'm not going to necessarily read out the top unless somebody would like me to. But I'd like to further point out the questions, and I asked this of City Council. What has City Council done to ensure what was affirmed last year in the last conversation that we had? What has been upheld? What steps have been taken to deter and eliminate hate in the community? What diversity and inclusivity training does City Council and staff take part in each year? And have the city bylaw officers been trained to recognize hate propaganda, and have they received a process for properly dealing with it? I ask this of City Council to come up with answers and to work together with the Quesnel Pride Society and other inclusive community societies to work towards a better and more educated council. And I would like to ask additionally that the Quesnel Pride Society be engaged in the consultation on LGBTQ2S+ matters moving forward, whether that be books and libraries, crosswalks, staff and council, and training. To me, this council is not fully educated well enough to make these types of decisions for a community that they have not yet communicated with. I think that a lot of you are doing a great job at being inclusive, but I think that inclusion takes more education, and the education just doesn't stop from one year to the next. Thank you for having us here today, and I'm here to answer any of your questions.
Okay, thank you, Julia. I'm going to open the floor up to questions. Now, you have outlined some questions in your letter. I'll start things off a little bit by saying that we have. I don't think that this particular council has undergone any sensitivity training, but I think some of the more senior council members recall that we did that probably about 3 or 4 years ago, and I don't know if it was Indigenous focused or what. I mean, it was a long time ago, probably too long of a time ago. I can tell you that in my 17 years with the New Pathways to Gold Society, we had several sessions on, and also at the regional district, we had sessions on sensitivity and inclusiveness and diversity. So, yeah, we have, but there is a point there that maybe it should be annual, and maybe that it should be scheduled so that it can be centered on issues of the day rather than just being generalized. Regarding training and I guess enforcing any kind of a situation where hate is involved with our bylaw officers, I think we need to have some more discussion about that, because I really think that is something that falls more to the RCMP than, I don't know how unless a bylaw officer is given the strict authority under a bylaw or a bylaw amendment to deal with and enforce any hateful speech. I don't know how we deal with that, and maybe we could open that up to discussion at the council level. Does anybody wish to jump in here rather than me doing all the talking? Go ahead, Councillor Elliott.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Julia, for the presentation. You're not wrong. You're not wrong. We have to do better. There's no doubt about it. I think you've got a lot of support on this council. In fact, I know that you do. But I think the community deserves more and better, and not just from your group and towards your group, but also obviously towards the Indigenous peoples of the area. there's more that we have to do. So I don't think easy answers right now are the way to go. I think that council as a whole has to circle around and look into inclusive training and understanding more. And I think with your help, if you, from your perspective, if you could point us in the right direction on some materials that we can work on, I think we absolutely have to. So thank you very much, and I support you 100%, and we will do better.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Elliott. Go ahead, Councillor Rudenberg.
Thank you, and nice to see you and your tribe behind you there. So it's unfortunate that you have to come to council again, 2 weeks before the event to actually have to go over this again with council. So as Councillor Elliott said, we need to do better as a council. It's not necessarily just taking a course that's going to make everything all better. That, you can take all kinds of online courses. I just went through 32 hours of training online, out the other. I think that in order for this to be meaningful for mayor and council, it's more about perhaps the training. It looks like a sit-down meal with community or with the board to talk about issues of the day, to talk about what challenges you see. We don't have all the answers as council. But I would like to see us have better communication with all members of our community, including the Pride Society. And I think that can be accomplished around the city bylaw piece. I know that's one of those interesting pieces, and I think that staff need to take that back and discuss what that looks like. And I know that, those first two questions, what steps have been taken to deter and eliminate hate in the community? I don't think I could give you an example. I know what I do personally, but as a council, I don't know if I could give you an example of those. And that's unfortunate. I think that having that, making sure that when we do discuss this, that it includes the Pride Society. When we talk about any kind of opportunities, whatever, those discussions need to include the community, not just what we think is right and what will work for the community. So thank you again for being here. I look forward to Saturday. I'm going to be having the key to the flagpole, by the way, because apparently the other one's busy doing music or something. I don't know. And I hope to see the rest of council there. I really do, because it's unfortunate that I don't normally see the rest of council show up for that event. Not that I'm calling them out, but if they're not doing anything, I'd like to see them there, whether it's at the beginning of the parade, whether it's down at the park. Just show up and just watch. I could say a whole lot more, but I'm just going to leave it at that. Thanks, Julia, for being who you are and for taking this on, because this is huge, putting yourself out there. You have your own things that you have to worry about, and then having to be that voice for a community that struggles. Thank you for that.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Rudenberg. Now I'm going to go to Councillor Runge.
Thanks, Julia. Thanks for the presentation. My apologies for making that comment to the worker, because I was talking about the budget and I thought it was an ex-student. So we were just talking. I said, hey, that's what I'd wished. And it was just a continuation of what our council was. It was never meant with any disrespect. It was, but I didn't realize that it was hitting there. So my apologies. And if you can, I'll send it on also next time he's here. Anyway, so otherwise, this report, is fine, and I think that was more of a misunderstanding than anything. I'm a budget guy. You guys know that, and I brought up the budget thing. So that point in the beginning, when I heard it was like, holy smokes, that was me. Sorry.
And I just want to say thank you. It speaks volumes for you to be able to say sorry right here and right now without me coming behind the door to talk to you. So really appreciate it, and it shows growth and strength. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Runge. Before I go to Councillor Elliott, does anybody else want in for? Okay, I'm going to go to Councillor Goulet first, and then to Councillor Elliott.
Thank you, and thanks, Julia, for the presentation. I heard a word in there, collaboration, and I think that's where we need to be as a council, is include that collaboration. I think I do need, and I take a lot of training on being inclusive, and I think it's always nice to refresh and do that on a regular basis. So I thank you for that, and I think I look forward to the collaboration piece with the Pride Society. I think that's important with all as we work through the inclusivity. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Goulet. Now to Councillor Elliott.
Thank you very much. Yeah, just to one of the points, Julia, the request was for to have the new flag, I think we've got a new flag, up in the park for 1 month. So the policy that hasn't been revisited, because I just checked on it, ironically, it was just brought up when I helped raise the flag for MS. Can we have it up for the whole month? And our policy states that the flag can only be up for a week. Now, I think potentially, I'm looking to Councillor Runch, who's the chair of PABCOM. I think if there isn't anything going on that's going to interfere or overlap, right, we can have a discussion if there's an overlap. But I think if a group requests to have their flag up for a month, I don't see any problem with that. So I would ask at this point in time, maybe I could put something on the floor to start that now, and then it goes back to conversation to PABCOM if the chair or anyone else is good with that. Thank you.
I certainly have no problem. I'm going to go to Councillor Runge first.
Yeah, I don't think it's a problem. I think we discussed this already. I think there is a policy in place already to allow it open, to allow it up there unless there's a request for another flag at the time. You know, if there's a request meeting it. But I think we already have spoken about that, I think 2 years ago. Possibly longer. I just seem to remember something in our minutes from that already previously. So if it's not showing up on, we should just we'll check that and see what's going on.
Yeah, because I checked that policy today, and it is just for a week. But if we're all in agreement, then this is easy. And you did mention having it come down for the 1 day for Indigenous Day. So I respect that as well, and I think we can figure out how to make that change and then switch it back over to the Pride for the full month.
So I'm kind of wondering, do we want a motion to bounce that over to PABCOM so that we can maybe introduce a bit of a subtle massaging of the
I can move that, Chair.
Of the policy?
Yeah, I think it's in the works anyway, but maybe just to have it.
Okay, so Councillor Elliott, you're making that motion.
Yes, sir.
And Councillor Rudenberg is seconding. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Is there anything more, Julia?
Yeah, I just wanted to just also clarify, I know that I had sent in a letter requesting that we be able to march the flag in, so it won't be up for the entirety of this month. I think the community enjoys being able to march with the flag to the flagpole and then having a big hurrah for the flag. So it won't be up there, for those from the LGBTQ societies of the world, that it will be up as of June 15th. So.
Okay, I see we've got some. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't have my microphone on. So we have no items arising from previous special closed meetings. We have no unfinished business. Under committee reports, I'm going to now go to the April 15th, 2024 Housing Solutions Table Chair Summary. Councillor Elliott to report. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, we were moving correspondence up, and there was an ask in the letter.
Oh, are you talking about the letter from the Pride Society?
Yes.
Specifically, there are several asks in there. Are we identifying one particular ask?
I think the main ask was the reaffirmation.
You lost me there. Which bullet? There's 6 bullets on where it says further we would like to know. Which one are we referring to?
You didn't want to, sorry. Julia, did you want a resolution? Sorry, I misunderstood.
No, I don't.
No? Okay.
I just wanted the questions answered.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we're good to go?
I was confused, yeah.
Okay, that's fine. Okay, so now we're going to go to Councillor Elliott to report on the Housing Solutions table summary.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. And this is to report on the last meeting of the Housing Solutions Table. And there's a few different topics that were discussed. The small-scale multi-unit housing update and what does it mean for Quesnel. I'm not really going to touch on this too much. Director Turner has about 60 pages that she's going to rip through a little bit later. Exciting news with Director Turner and her group and all they're doing to help get housing going in the community. If you look under housing development update, the Xerox housing, which is going to take place right beside City Hall here, is going to start construction fairly soon, and that's a 57-unit apartment, so that's exciting. The Telecom Society, and there's no conflict, so I can talk about Councillor Goulet's here, is intending to start their construction soon, and that's 34-unit apartment this spring at providing low-income housing. So that's amazing. MJI development of 20 units of market rental intended for occupancy in August. BC Housing is proposing a 24-unit transitional housing on Anderson Drive. The challenge in Quesnel is that it's difficult to find developable land. So we're working on that. And one of the things that was discussed is, there's not big parcels out there, but there is, and this is contentious, but there is a lot of parking in the city. So is there any way that we can adjust some of the parking and potentially put up more homes, because everyone deserves a home. So that's going to be more conversations coming down the road. Joe Hart discussed a new initiative he's attempting to get up and running with his group, and it's intention to advocate for and assist vulnerable populations with house repairs needed to keep them in their homes, and that they are in the process of establishing a society right now, and this is really cool. He's also looking for startup grants because he mentioned the possibility of almost, and this is my word, but communal housing and having seniors potentially living together in some of these big homes that they have and working together through some of the challenges. For example, one of the benefits could be you could have a doctor come or a specialist come to the house and deal with 4 or 5 people at one time instead of having different. You could have one person go and shop for everyone. It's just very, very a new idea for this community anyway, and still lots of conversations, lots of pros, but obviously potential cons as well. Review of the existing housing needs assessment and action plan. So this has been mandated. It has to be done by January 1st, 2025. And there's a consultant that's going to bring an update, and there's lots of work getting done there. The vulnerable population report, the committee was provided with an extensive report from December 2023, and there's a huge need for non-market housing options for seniors and other vulnerable people. So that's why the beginning of the conversation of this report is so exciting, because we've been working a long time to get more housing started, and finally with some of the things that we've done, the councils, this and previous, it's actually happening. I think everyone's probably aware of more housing at Carson, which is previously the Grace Inn, and this will be transitional housing, which is very important too, to transition people in their struggles and journey as they go forward. The Grace Inn is really, it's going to be knocked down, but it's going to go in sections, and there's going to, one part's going to happen and then a bit more. They're going to bring in ATCO trailers to house 20 to 24 people at the beginning when construction's taking place, and then move people into the new part and use the ATCO trailers, and eventually they're going to have 40 to 50 tenants there. So there's 40 to 50 more rooms, which is very, very exciting for us. And just on the Shelter Society itself, they've got 18 new staff members, and they currently have 70 to 80 staff on hand, so for the benefit of all in the community. Residential in South Quesnel commercial, the South Quesnel Business Association would like to see more housing opportunities, potentially on top of some of the buildings. We've got that enabled downtown, and it seems like an easy ask, but it's just not quite. Downtown is created for pedestrians, and it really falls in line for that kind of thing. There are challenges up in the south because it wasn't created for pedestrians. I mean, there's not a lot of sidewalks, so there are challenges. But at this point in time, different businesses could get variances to be able to create housing on top, and there's going to be a lot of work done in the future. So that's just a file that's beginning to go. In the roundtable, we had a lot of different things come up. We've got a great group of people that are coming here, very diverse. We talked about the Quesnel Junior School lands, and you know, wanting to see some kind of movement on there. It's just sitting there. The group would love to see housing. So it's something that there's a recommendation below that I'll talk to. Maple Park Mall, there's not much that we can do about it. It's been hard to even track down the owner of that. You know, a lot of residents are concerned about it, but we'll see what we can do. We're working. Let's see, there's a BC housing program that will provide up to $40,000 forgivable loan for the creation of secondary suites, carriage homes, et cetera, subject to the suites being rented out below market value for 5 years. So this is a provincial initiative that's been brought forward, a blanket kind of proposal for all of British Columbia, which is great, but it's got its challenges, especially for smaller communities, especially in the north. It seems to us that it's been, you know, really more designed for down south and bigger cities. And there's been a lot put on Director Turner's plate as far as following the protocols for everything, but it's not that easy for us in the north. That being said, it doesn't appear, there's no way that every house in Quesnel is going to have a carriage home. I mean, we worked hard to get secondary suites legalized, and not many people have taken us up on that. So it's something that we have to do, and I don't think that there should be fear in the community of mass of these going on in downtown or anywhere else. If we got one a year or a couple a year, that'd be great, but it's a work in progress. I think that's about it. I've got a recommendation here moved by Charlotte Curta, seconded Joe Hart, that due to the need for housing, correspondence be sent to the province that the former Quesnel Junior School lands in North Quesnel should be made available as soon as possible for that purpose. That was carried unanimously, and I can move that if we'd like.
Okay, thank you. Moved by Councillor Elliott and seconded by Councillor McKelvey. Is there any discussion on that one? Well, it doesn't look like a recommendation in the form of the motion, but that's what it is. The committee is recommending to council that we write to the provincial government regarding trying to get something moving on the the Quesnel Junior Secondary School grounds. Is that right, Councillor
Yes, sir.
Elliott? Yeah. Okay. Councillor Runge.
I'm not sure if we can do that right now. Like, we might be working at cross purposes with other things. I think the motion, I think we could hear the motion as a council, but I believe some of this, when we get into land legal and government, that's a closed meeting, and I think this should be discussed in a closed meeting rather than passed as a motion here.
Go ahead, Councillor Elliott.
Okay, I don't disagree, but this is just a recommendation from the committee.
Recommendation, so to accept the recommendation?
Yeah, from the committee. It's not a decision that council has made. It's just representing the people in the housing committee and their desires. So they're certainly not speaking for council.
Thank you. I do have another question, though, to the report. Is this the time that I can put it in, or are we dealing with that?
Well, let's deal with I'm treating this as a recommendation from the committee, and really, I know you're, Councillor Runge, you're talking about a closed meeting agenda, but this is out in the open. I mean, a lot of people are saying what's happening with the Quesnel Junior Secondary School grounds, and I think the whole community feels that it's an excellent opportunity for a diversified range of housing options. So I don't think that we need to sort of go behind closed doors to have that discussion. Councillor Runge.
Yeah, I'm not going behind closed doors to have this discussion. I'm just not sure if we should be having the discussion right now. And I'm actually going to defer to Carrie on this one because I'm not sure what our process should be here. I have no problem moving a letter forward if that's okay generally, but I don't want it to be at any cross purposes with anything else that's possibly going on.
Okay, I'm going to go to Carrie for a comment maybe.
I don't see any issue with passing a resolution to write a letter, yeah.
Okay, so we do have a resolution on the floor, so are we ready to go for the question? Councillor Rudenberg.
And I think that this is actually rather timely because there hasn't been a whole lot of movement from the province. And so by doing this, especially if, it's coming from council, but because of the housing committee, I think it's very timely that it gets sent.
Go ahead, Councillor Elliott.
Yeah, I agree with Councillor Rudenberg and timely in a number of ways, but with UBCM coming up too in September, it's certainly a conversation that we could have with the Minister of Housing and ask the questions well in advance. So yeah, I agree.
I don't want to put a fly in the ointment, but do we need to have any consultation or collaboration with First Nations on this? Because, I mean, there could be a potential interest there.
I would think that we're putting the cart before the horse. This is just coming from the committee, just to ask a question and just highlight it a bit more.
I just wanted to ask the question. So
I agree with you, and it is a conversation that we should have, but I don't think this is going to offend. Okay,
so are we ready to go for the vote on this one? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you, Council. Councillor Elliott, you are up again for the, and you're presenting.
Mayor, can I have a question to the previous report?
Go ahead, I'm sorry, I didn't see you.
Thank you. No, that's fine. So my question is with regards to the vulnerable population report on page 15 of 110 of the, or maybe that's the old agenda, sorry. The vulnerable population report is, so that's, I believe, is the help seeker report that was given to us previously. And we were going to get some updates on the data. Did that report include the updates?
Not the appendix. I'm still yet to send that out to council, the appendixes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so thank you for that. So now we're going to go to the FSAC meeting held May 29. Over to you, Councillor Elliott, on behalf of Councillor Vick.
Thank you, Chair. And yeah, I just got the request to do this. Unfortunately, Councillor Vick is going through some challenges right now. So this is to report on the last meeting of FSAC. So here's some of the topics that we discussed. The committee heard from the fire chief about allocating funds in a different direction. First of all, with the budget, we had discussed getting more office furniture. If you go into the brand new fire hall, it's amazing, but the office furniture is old and dilapidated, and it needs help. There's no doubt about it. And that fund was for $10,000, but the fire chief has asked us to switch it so that it goes to exhaust fans that are located over top of their moist and smoky gear. So they have dryers that are amazing that dry all the gear immediately after they come back from a fire, but there were no exhaust fans put in. All the infrastructure is in the roof. There was just, I think, a disconnect at some point in time. So he's just asked basically that the funds from the furniture be put into the funds for the fan to make it safer, and so the whole area doesn't stink. I suggested maybe we talk about combining and getting both things done this year. He was fine with just going with the fans. So I think it's basic and easy. I'm hoping for council, and that's in the recommendation below. The Finance Department update, the property tax notices are out, and it's been fairly busy, I'm thinking. So get your payments in if you haven't done that yet. We discussed the moose sculpture that Bert DeVink is looking to donate to the city. He has a number of different pieces of art in the new arena, and it kind of falls in that line. They're all made with metal, like he's made these things. So the moose is huge. It's been brought up here from Vancouver Island, and it's been asked that we potentially put it on in front of the Arena 2 on the grass there. And there's a report coming up later on that we can look at that and have that discussion. There was an in-kind request from Quesnel Search and Rescue to work on their parking situation because it's potholed and these kind of things. And Director Thomas is going to follow up on this because it's a little challenging asking for cash for in-kind or anything like that when we're so far through the budget cycle. So the staff's going to have that conversation, and maybe we can figure something out this year for sure. We talked about the municipal information network, and really it's this group sends out emails about job postings and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So what you'll get is, tens, if not, you'll get a heck ton of emails every day, and it just doesn't fit for us at this time. They charge a cost for each year, and it doesn't seem like it would be a benefit to us, so we weren't recommending that. Travel per diems haven't been looked at for city staff and others for many years, so we're going to have a conversation about that and try and keep it up to date with the rest of the province and the CRD, et cetera. Permissive tax exemptions. The Legion has a new foreshore lease created when they installed the dock last year, and this will require amendment to the permissive tax exemption bylaw, and staff will bring that amendment to council over the summer. And they don't usually take late asks for tax exemptions, but they did this year with the Legion because they thought it was such a good cause. So that was really, really good news, and it deferred some costs from the Legion, which is nice. I'm going to slide into the Quesnel-Hydraulic Society powwow, but I think, are you going to? Well, you know what? I think we'll just leave that one because Kerry's going to talk about it later, but I think Councillor Goulet may recuse himself. Okay, so the recommendations, permissions to allocate funds. That the Financial Sustainability and Audit Committee recommends to Council that the $10,000 allocated in the capital budget for the fire department furniture be changed for the installation of the exhaust fans at the fire hall. That was carried unanimously, and I would move that recommendation.
Okay, so that is moved by Councillor Elliott and seconded by Councillor Rudenberg. She was there first. Okay. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Carried. The next recommendation, Councillor Elliott?
Yes. And Councillor Goulet is going to recuse himself from this one. The Quesnel-Hydraulic Society 50th Annual Powwow, that the Financial Sustainability and Audit Committee recommends to Council that the annual contribution to the powwow be increased to $500 from $300 for 2024 in recognition of the fact that this is the 50th anniversary and that Council approve the use of BC Transit buses to shuttle to the event. And I think I'll go to Director Bolton if that's okay, Chair.
Yeah, I just wanted to give out an update on this. Director Norbring got back to me that the estimated cost for the BC Transit is approximately $1,500. BC Transit hasn't confirmed this for sure, but they're looking at it, and once we send them the resolution, that'll be the final piece for them to make their decision whether or not to approve it.
Okay, so this recommendation also is, then it includes the piece about the transit as well? So
yes, sir.
Should we be voting on two resolutions, or can we get by with one? One?
Yes.
Okay, so.
And for clarity, the transit is just to get people to the powwow and then back to Spirit Square. So to shuttle back and forth. It won't be free transit all day for everyone. It's just for this one event.
Okay, so Councillor Runge.
And so the 2,000 would come out of council initiatives then later?
It'll just go against the BC Transit budget, and then we'll see how that whole budget plays out.
Wildwood.
Okay, so we have a mover and a seconder. Are we ready for the vote? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay, we can call Councillor Goulet back in. And the next item on our agenda, council reports and discussion items. Alternate Director Rudenberg is going to report on the May 3 and May 2-4 CRD board highlights.
Thank you. The board highlights only just came out at the end of last week for May 3rd, so that's why they're both being spoken to this evening. You'll see the highlights in front of you. A lot of discussion around the financial statements that the CRD has received. They went through their audit report, just like council did a little while ago. I'm going to skip down to close to the end. The board will be joining the City of Williams Lake Council and calling on the Ministry of Environment and Climate Change Strategy to take the lead on tackling air quality concerns. Discussions about this advocacy works highlighted the previous efforts by local governments and organizations to address concerns and the need for a greater level of provincial involvement and a support for air quality improvements. This is rather timely to see where this lands, because we just had a meeting yesterday with the Quesnel Air Quality Roundtable, and there was discussion about how they can work together with other air quality roundtables in moving forward with like-minded projects and concerns. So very timely there. The other piece from this particular meeting is the CRD has what's called Make the Move, Resident and Investment Attraction Campaign. And apparently it's making waves on national television with spot ads featuring features appearing on networks such as CNN, Global, CTV, and MSNBC. So these advertisements offer a glimpse into how Caribou residents are taking advantage of everyday play over the odd getaway, a trend more people are realizing since the pandemic and with growing congestion in urban green spaces and parks. So I've got two really quick videos here that have been appearing on those networks that I spoke of.
Welcome to the land of everyday play. Picture your future in BC's Caribou. With its slower pace of life and rich variety of activities at your doorstep, here, every day is like a getaway. Enjoy some of the sunniest weather BC has to offer, where history and heritage are always close by, and nature surrounds. Wouldn't you take everyday play over the odd getaway? Spend less time planning, more time enjoying life. Make the move to BC's Caribou.
A new life awaits. Picture your future in BC's Caribou. Here, with the great BC outdoors on your doorstep, you can be out in the open air in minutes, right from your home or office. There's so much to enjoy. Head out on the nature trail, on your quad, dirt bike, mountain bike. Get out on the water in your kayak or on your paddleboard. Isn't it time you chose long trails over long commutes? Find out more about your future in BC's Caribou at caribourd.ca.
Thank you for that. So there is our Make the Move website if you're interested in accessing any of the relocation resources that they have there. Any questions on that first board highlight? Seeing none, I'll move into the second one, which was for May 24th. As you see, the Caribou Regional District will be considering a change to zoning bylaws to ensure compliance with provincial housing legislation. They're proposing amendments to the Quesnel Fringe Area Zoning Bylaw, et cetera, to bring the CRD's bylaws into compliance with new provincial housing legislation. So what that means is that it'll provide clarity that a minimum of one secondary suite within a single-family dwelling is permitted in any provincially designated restricted zone, and that the secondary suites will still be required to comply with the existing zoning standards for size and siting, et cetera. So they are dealing with the housing legislation just like we are. They are getting themselves set up for UBCM. You'll see that they have identified the following topics for meetings with ministers. The BC Wildfire Staff, Minister of Environment and Climate Change Strategy, and Minister of Health, Minister of Transportation and Infrastructure, and Ministry of Transportation and Infrastructure on 2 different issues. They actually recognize that it's all great to have these 15-minute speed dating opportunities at UBCM, but it will be coming on the heels of a provincial election within weeks. So depending on who gets back in, there's always ministerial shuffles, et cetera. They do recognize that, but they still want these issues to be moved forward. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. They talked a little bit about the healthcare recruitment program that's going on. I meant to bring a sheet that actually highlights what's going on with the Northern Health recruitment program, but I could not find the sheet that I wanted, so I'll try and bring that back to the next meeting. And just shows you some of the recruitment numbers that Quesnel's getting. Any comments on board highlights for May 24th?
Okay, thank you, Councillor Rudenberg. And you are next up with your North Central Local Government Association Conference report from Smithers.
Thank you. So yes, NCLGA did take place in Smithers this year from May 13th through to the 16th. One of the highlights for me was an opportunity to visit the Wet'suwet'en Community Forest. It was one of the tours that was offered. It's been in operation since 2007. They have quite an area that they cover, and it was really interesting listening to how they talked about their core values as a community forest: cultural, ecological, community, recreational, economics. And so with those core values, that's how the community forest is run. They have what's called the RUG group, which is the resource user groups. And so their input opportunities evolve around everything except conventional forestry. They don't get themselves involved in that, but what they do get themselves involved in is communications, which includes their website, social media, First Nations, land use planning, improved management, enhanced stewardship opportunities also. One of the other pieces that was really interesting is every year they have community grants that go up. They have a max of $20,000 grants that go to not-for-profits, and approximately $300,000 profit a year goes towards those grants in the community. And they make it kind of a celebration day within the community itself. The other piece that they're working on quite diligently has to do with wildfires. And so they have a wildfire urban interface issue there because the community forest is very close to Smithers and other valuable pieces. And so they know that trying to do their wildfire protection, there's a balance there between all of those core values and risk. So what they've done is they've started doing this program called Shaded Fuel Break. And so it's a large landscape level fuel treatment that alters the behavior of wildland wildfires by modifying the fuels. And it's utilized to anchor points for initial attack for wildfire crews. It balances the values across the landscape. So that's where we ended up after they had a discussion with the team that runs the community forest. We actually went up to one of the areas where they do these shaded fuel breaks, and they're really quite substantial, and they're very close to roads so that they're easily, you can set up strategically when you need to your wildfire crews for attack, and their plan is to actually surround the entire forest with this fuel break. So that was really quite interesting. Some of the other things is that a lot of the sessions just reinforced what Quesnel is already doing, including projects such as our labor market attraction and retention and our forestry innovations office. I had the opportunity to take part in a panel titled Economic Flourish, Nurturing Tourism and Business Growth. I spoke about our strategies and partnerships partnerships that Quesnel is using to enhance our tourism sector, not only as an alternate to when a mill closes down, but as a purposeful and strategic opportunity to create a year-round sector that benefits our communities and businesses. 47 resolutions were brought to the floor this year, and despite a few hiccups, all made it to the floor with healthy debate. And this is the first time I've actually ever seen NCLGA actually debate resolutions at NCLGA. Usually it's kind of like everybody's just really nice, first, second, move, go, carry on. The list of resolutions brought forward can be found at the NCLGA annual report. A few of interest for Quesnel. One was around the water infrastructure funding. It was submitted by the Caribou Regional District, and it's basically talking about providing stable funding for local governments to upgrade water distribution and treatment systems, which is kind of timely considering how much it's going to cost us for a treatment system. And the second one that I thought was of interest was the community safety resources, and it was submitted by the City of Terrace. And basically it's asking UBCM and NCLJ to lobby the province to commit to provide adequate ongoing and direct funding in order to support local government needs for community safety. And that's my report, Mayor.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Rudenberg. Does anyone have any questions with respect to that second report? Okay, seeing none then, we will now go to city staff reports. Item K1, admin report 78B/24, bylaw number 1962, City of Quesnel small scale multi-unit housing zoning amendment bylaw. Director Turner to report.
Thank you, Council, and thank you, Councillor Elliott, for recognizing that you get to see this report again. There is a couple of slight amendments. This is a very extensive report, so I thought it was worth the time just to put it in its majority back on. There are a couple of items that I want to point out that have changed since the first report. The first of significance is that we have received the report from WSP now that supports our exemption request for West Quesnel Land Stability Area, and it's attached to this report for your information. We will be looking to make sure that's available on our website, both under the SHMA, the small scale multi-unit housing website page, as well as under the West Quesnel Land Stability Area website page as well for information. Let me know if you have any questions regarding that correspondence, but I think it's fairly self-explanatory and will meet the needs of the province to allow that exemption. The second is that following the original report, the province decided to waive our requirement to have the Ministry of Highways sign off on the bylaw, so that's no longer required now. So in the process section of this report, you'll see that that's been removed. I am going to only recommend tonight to do first reading. We can have it out there then and bring it back on the 25th for the next 3 readings, which will allow some time to digest any questions to come about to have that. If there is any need for any kind of amendment, it could be done at that time. And that's the reason why I'm recommending that process. The small scale multi-unit housing policy amendments are to allow, in the case of the city, not just secondary suites and accessory dwelling units, as is the case in the CRD, but it also requires that we allow up to 4 units in all restricted zones due to the size of our parcels in the community. Restricted zones are zones that previously only allowed single-family dwelling units or duplexes. So every property that was currently restricted to those types of housing forms are now allowed up to 4 units of housing on those properties. And as you'll see, there's a number of considerations that the province asked us to look at in developing policy that would meet these new requirements. The first being building type. There's a number of forms of building types that you can have in order to meet those requirements or to achieve 4 units. We are recommending that all of those options be available at this time. The thing to note here is that we do have to do a full amendment of the zoning bylaw by the end of 2025 and our official community plan. If we are finding that there's any amendments required to any of these areas, we can adjust at that time, and that's what we're recommending. For density, again, we're just moving currently or commonly in zoning bylaws, it was a number of dwelling units per size, per acres, or hectares. We're just going straight to the language of 4 units per lot. And that's sort of, a lot of these are coming from recommendations that came out of the policy manual from the province. Lot coverage, we've slightly reduced our lot coverages. We already had fairly good lot coverages in terms of complying with the provincial policy manual. So there was a slight amendment down to 30% from what was originally 40%. The lot line setbacks, again, we've done some slight amendments, but we had already currently done a lot of work, and that was because we already did the work to permit accessory dwelling units on all properties. And so we had already looked at lot line amendments and that in order to really accommodate a number of types of building forms. So those were already done. There's some slight amendments, but the overall is fairly consistent to where we were previously. Building heights. Interestingly, the recommendation is that is an area where you can really achieve more density is in building heights. The recommendation is to go to 11 meters or 3 stories, and we are recommending that and put that in the policy for you to consider. The parking requirements, as discussed in the last report, we are maintaining parking requirements of 1 vehicle per unit. This obviously, there was a strong push to have no parking required for any of these units. Being that we're in the north, and we have certain considerations, we have to really worry about street parking due to snow clearing. We have maintained that, and the province has acknowledged that in the north we have those extra considerations. And ownership stratification, again, we are recommending that to not control ownership forms, and in most cases, but just allow the market to decide in those areas as well. Is there any questions?
So we do have a recommendation. Have we read that into the record? Yeah.
I have not. Would you like me to go right to the recommendation?
Yeah, we need something to vote on here, please.
Okay. That council has been advised that on May 10th, 2024, the Minister of Transportation and Infrastructure issued BC Reg 99/2024, Ministerial Order M114, Transportation Act, Section 52(3)A, Approval Exemption, Controlled Access Highway, Small-Scale Multi-Unit Housing Zoning Amendments no longer require ministry approval, and that council provide first readings of Bylaw 1962, City of Quesnel Zoning Amendment Bylaw 1962-2024, Small-Scale Multi-Unit Housing.
Okay, moved Councillor Elliott, seconded Councillor Rudenberg. I do have a question to staff, I guess to you, Tanya, that when we're looking at increasing the density of many neighborhoods where single-family zones are going to conceivably have up to 4 dwelling units per lot, I've read through this and I couldn't see any reference to who would be responsible. I mean, because it's a provincial government that is imposing this upon us, who would be responsible for upgrading water, sewer, etc., sidewalks, streets, schools? Like, has any thought been put into that?
There's been a lot of discussion and thought around those sorts of things. The premise is that this type of housing will come very slowly. It won't come in forms that would require changes, you know, in a time frame that we could not respond with respect to having resources available for those infrastructure. Definitely, they've also accompanied these legislative amendments with other legislative amendments that are allowing us to review some of our other policies, and I've listed that under other bylaws that need to be considered that allow us to make changes with respect to funding, so that we could make changes to our DCC bylaws, our amenity contribution bylaws, we could develop amenity contribution bylaw. We can look at different ways to fund this growth over time. but it will be, the thought process is that we will develop, and it'll become our issue to make sure that we pass on to developers, or, pay for ourselves.
Well, I find that very difficult to think that if a single lot property owner decides to go to the maximum of 4 units for her lot, there's no way that one lot owner could be, or a combination or an accumulation of lot owners that are doing the same thing, how they can be required to pay for upsizing of utilities. I just don't see how that would work.
I think we're fairly confident that our utility sizes will handle, an amount of growth for some time, that we would have time to respond to further upgrades needed.
Yeah, I see where you're going, but at the end of the day, I see it falling back to the general taxpayer to pay for those improvements. Councillor Rudenberg.
So this has been one of those arguments or discussion points that I know that UBCM has used quite frequently in regards to this housing legislation. The fact that if you're increasing density in communities, who's paying for utilities? Who's paying for the fact that potentially, new schools need to be built? I mean, that's not necessarily going to be the issue here. What about emergency services, having more ambulance spaces, more park areas? So this has been one of those issues that we keep pushing at the province, saying, listen, if you're talking about this increased density, especially 4 per, how do you take care of the infrastructure? And so we keep bringing it up, and they just keep kind of avoiding the answer, but it's one of those issues.
Thank you. I'm going to go to Amy, or pardon me, to Tanya. I saw the sign that says, okay.
Director Turner, please. I'm kidding. They have changed the financing tools. They have increased our ability, and we will be bringing a future report to you. There's quite a bit of work to do here with the future zoning amendment and all of these considerations of these other bylaws. Whether they're sufficient and all that, I think Lorianne might, I think we have some time. I think there's some other communities that may have some bigger concerns that I've heard of a few communities that have a number of applications on their desks already.
Thank you for that. Councillor Runge.
Yeah, thanks, Tanya. And for the public's edification, if I can use a word here that's been used before, these are legislative amendments that, I would love to argue some of these, but we're prohibited from those public meetings. So my question, I guess, is the only time that we might see a job or an opportunity or a chance for us to talk about it is if they were looking for parking amendments. Would that then come back to council at that time for spaces? Like, otherwise, this is really in your hands for all the rest of the stuff based on the new policy, right?
A bit. I mean, we're going to have some significant conversations going into that next zoning bylaw and to those other policy or bylaw updates, especially those regarding the development finance tools that they have put out there, and to determine how much we want to put back to the prospective housing developers in order to create these opportunities, and what's the right proportions, et cetera.
Okay, is there anyone else on this one? Councillor Elliott, go ahead.
Thank you. Excuse me. And just for clarity, we're allowed to have these conversations. There's no doubt about it. I think what they're trying to do, and I get it for bigger areas as well, is just the public hearings and not having that, because all you would get wrapped around in is NIMBYism, and you wouldn't be able to push forward on anything. So we can have all our conversations about how it affects the city. We just can't have that ability to go into a public hearing.
Okay, so thank you. Now, where are we at on the recommendation? Do we have a motion on the floor? We have a mover and a seconder. Okay, so are we ready for a question? Okay, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you for that, Council. Now we go to Admin Report 79/24, Johnston Bridge Utility Upgrades Phase 1 Contract Award. Director Coben to report.
Thank you, Mayor. The purpose is to receive council approval to sign the contract for Johnston Bridge utility upgrades Phase 1 for construction. The water main crossing under the CN rail tracks at Davie Street, it's 65 years old, approaching end of expected lifespan. Completing this replacement in advance of major Johnston Bridge repairs ensures a timely completion of a uniquely defined project, just due to the fact of the CN permitting and crossing regulations. So this consists of new water and sanitary mains underneath the CN rail line. So we're going to be using 40-meter trenchless crossing. The work includes installation of approximately 90 meters of water and sanitary main, new fire hydrant manholes, crossing of other utilities, system connections, and road restoration. 2 bids were received for this project. Canadian Western Mechanical is the lowest bidder and have met all of the submission requirements. This project is in the 5-year capital plan, and pricing is within the 2024 approved capital budget. There'll be very little to minor water service disruption to a few customers. However, there will be a road closure of the Johnston Bridge approach for the majority of the construction, which is unavoidable with this type of work. Completion of the project is expected by early fall of 2024. The recommendation is that Quesnel City Council direct staff to award the Johnston Bridge utility upgrades Phase 1 to Canadian Western Mechanical in the amount of $796,576.02 plus GST, with funding coming from water and sewer reserves.
Okay, thank you for that. That's moved by Councillor Elliott and seconded by Councillor Runge. Any discussion? Councillor Elliott.
Thank you, sir. There's been a lot of talk in the community over the last little while, and thank you very much for the report. It's nice to see that this is moving forward finally, but there's been a lot of discussion from just how much of a delay has been happening, and I think people deserve to know, and we don't have to get into specifics, that it hasn't been a delay from the city, it's been a delay from the utilities that are on the bridge. So everything appears to be coming in line, and I'm glad to see it moving forward.
Councillor McKelvey.
Thank you, Chair. Can you tell us when it's going to get underway?
Yeah, so if the resolution tonight proceeds, so basically the contract to award will go out this week. So we'd be looking at work basically starting to take place here in the next 3 weeks.
Okay, so we have a mover and a seconder on that one. We're ready for the question. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Now we go to admin reports 80/24, Bert DeVink's moose sculpture. Offer of donation to the city. Director Bolton to report. This is a late agenda item.
Thank you. So the purpose of this report is to discuss the potential donation of Bert DeVink's moose sculpture. So the proposed donation was brought to council at the last council meeting and sent to staff and the Financial Sustainability and Audit Committee to discuss the potential costs and options for locations. It is at council's sole discretion as to whether or not to accept this donation. The location discussed at the FSAC meeting was to potentially put the moose in the grass area in front of Arena 2. An updated quote was received from the contractor to refinish the moose and install it. Various options were discussed, such as a sonotube foundation or slab foundation, and the slab foundation is the cheaper option. So there's a couple resolutions. The council provide direction on whether or not to accept this donation. And then if that is a yes, and the further resolutions needed will be that council approve up to $15,000 from council initiatives to refurbish and locate the moose sculpture at the chosen location. And the council approves locating the Bert DeVink's moose sculpture in front of Arena 2 subject to no objection from the North Cariboo Joint Advisory.
Okay, thank you. So then I will entertain a motion for number 1, or for resolution number 1. And please note that there is a quote that has been submitted to refinish and install the moose for $10,600 and change. So the approximately $4,500 would be contingency if that is needed. So what is council's pleasure? No motion? Councillor Runge?
I just have a question. For me, I have an issue with late motions, with us not actually having a chance to look at all these things and think these things prior to this. I know this was coming sometime, but the motion came today. which for me is a little bit problematic, because it doesn't give me time to actually think about all of the things. And it's not about, because I actually think the moose would be wonderful in Quesnel. I'm just not, I think, is there a pressure that it has to be done at this meeting, or could I table it to next meeting so I get a little bit of time to just perk things through my brain, I guess, a little bit? Or like, I guess that's my question.
Okay, what, does anyone else have any, there is some urgency on this, and I don't want to sort of get into the detail, but it has to do with the fact that Mr. DeVink is not well. And I'm not saying that should be an excuse, but this has been going on for some time, and I'd love to pay this myself, but I've already got $2,000 of my own money into this, so I hope that the city can see their way clear to do this. And I will put out a shout out to my friend John Matthews, because he actually volunteered to do the install on his own time and his own dime. But when we checked into it, we find that things like WorkSafe and workers' compensation and liability and all the rest of it gets in the way. So we have to either have our own crews do it or hire a contractor, and Mr. Aaron Harder has provided a total contract to refurbish the moose, and that was detailed in an earlier report to council, and to do the complete install on a cement slab in front of arena number 2. So the floor is open. Go ahead, Councillor Elliott.
Okay, so I'm wondering if there's a possibility, if council agrees to move forward, for us to look for donations from potentially to bring the cost down from United Concrete to do the slab. Maybe we could ask them for that. But you know, from a tourism perspective, from us trying to push for more arts and culture in the community, I think it would be a good initiative for us. I would like to see the cost come down. The piece of artwork is worth, it's been estimated at about $65,000. And like I said before, we've got some of the artwork adjacent to where this would go, right in the new arena. So I think to have more artwork down in our new precinct and, you know, drive more tourism, I think for the cost of what we're putting out as compared to what we're getting in $65,000 in this artwork, I think it could be beneficial to the city, and I'm curious what others feel.
Thank you, Councillor Elliott. Anyone else? Okay, so we don't have a motion on the floor, so go ahead, Councillor Runge.
Sorry, just before I put a motion, we put a motion on the floor, just a question to, I guess, Carrie, Ms. Bolton. Are we following the right process with regards to the quote, or is that within the number where we can just pick a quote, or do we have to go to a tender for that?
This is a very specialized service, the refurbishing of the moose, so I'm not sure that there's much. And it's below our threshold for requiring an official tender. It's more we just get quotes, and I'm not sure anyone else could do this type of work.
All right. Having heard that, I hate the process we've gone through here. We have to work on this process in bylaw coming up so that we follow a process with regards to donations. I think it's I still, you know, I'm torn because it's a positive thing for our community to have it there. We have money in our council initiative still, so it wouldn't be it wouldn't be an additional taxation. It would be just council initiatives being used up for something that's going to benefit the community. So I'd put the motion forward that we follow these 3 recommendations.
I'm sorry, are you making a motion? And that motion is?
That we accept them.
Okay, so you're moving
those recommendations.
Yeah, the first part.
Sorry, moving the. Actually, you know what? Do they have? If you want to move them all together, that's fine. I move them all together. We still need the okay from.
Okay, so we have both parts of the recommendation duly moved by Councillor Runge, seconded by Councillor McKelvey. Yes. Okay, thank you. Is there any further? Go ahead, Councillor Elliott.
Thank you. I would like us to try and see if we can get donations for the concrete or any assistance as far as the site prep. But once again, I think it is a wonderful piece of artwork. I don't necessarily like the cost, but these things cost money, and I think, I mean, it's not easy for me, but I think it's the right choice for council if we move forward.
Okay, thank you for that, Councillor Elliott. Councillor Rudenberg.
Thank you. So I've already made my opinion known the last report that we had on this, and now we've gone from what was supposed to be a $5,000 initiative we'll just put it on a slab to up to $15,000 now. I get it that we love our outdoor art and that Bert is a part of our community and, you know, tourism and all that, but this does not sit well on my shoulders, and I'm going to have to vote in the negative for this.
I'm sorry, Councillor Goulet.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I'm as well torn on this one as well. I think the need for and promoting artists, to me, it's the $15,000 I think is pretty expensive. To Councillor Elliott's point, if there's a way to see if some of this can be done cheaper, I'm really torn. I wasn't sure on how I would want to vote, but I'm thinking of not supporting this as it is, just on the cost basis for me. I think it's pretty expensive at the $15,000. To Councillor Rudenberg's point, we were at 5,000, I think, at one meeting, and now we've jumped up 10,000. It just seems there's quite a bit of discrepancy for me, and just feel that I wouldn't be able to support it as is.
Okay, thank you for that. Councillor Runge.
You know what? In fairness to the amount, we originally okayed 5,000. We then pulled that back. That was paid for by the mayor and some others that crowdfunded it. So we're actually 5,600 above for a great sculpture. I guess that's my thinking on this, and I think, you know, even though, and people know I like process, I will still vote in favor of this based on that, because the difference is 5,000 from what we had before, or 5 and change.
Okay, go ahead, Councillor Elliott.
Yeah, and further to that point, there's the 5,000 in for contingency. So that, just for clarity, that's if the ground has to be, if the sprinkler system has to be relocated in the grass. So we may not use that either. So to Councillor Runge's point, yeah, I agree.
Is anyone able to say whether I went and looked at it and I couldn't see any sprinkler heads where we're proposing to put the moose. Go ahead, Carrie.
Yeah, I actually confirmed with our facility manager late this afternoon where the sprinklers are, and as long as we place the moose right in the center of the grass, we should be good. But we still need a little contingency. You never know what might happen in these type of projects, so it's always best to leave a little.
Okay, thank you for that. So it appears that we're not going to need much of that $5,000 contingency, but it's just there as a cushion. Are we ready to proceed with the vote on this, or is there any further discussion? Do we have a mover and a seconder? At least I know we got a mover. And seconder. So I will call the question. All in favor? Opposed? 2 opposed? Carried. Thank you. And that was for both parts of the resolution. And I will say that Bert will be so happy to hear that we're getting this project done, and we'd like to have a little ribbon cutting, and he says that he'd like to come down and make a little speech when we're ready to go with this. So thank you for that, Council. And again, I apologize for, you know, maybe departing from the process, but when past mayor, I can blame this all on past Mayor Bello, because he got me going on this, and I immediately jumped at the opportunity, and I shouldn't have been so eager. So my apologies for that. Okay, so that one is out of the way. Now we go to bylaws. Bylaw number 1959, City of Quesnel Hotel Tax Exemption or Hotel Tax Revitalization Bylaw number 1959 for. I'm sorry.
You missed K4.
Oh, yes, okay. Oh, I'm sorry, right at the top of the page. I'm sorry about that. Admin report 81/24, development permit 2024-72, Hillside hazard height variance for single detached residential, Quesnel-Hydraulic Road, Director Turner to report.
Thank you, Mayor. In summary, the applicant is proposing to construct a 3-story dwelling located on a sloped vacant property on Quesnel-Hydraulic Road. A geohazard assessment by Westtrek Geotechnical Services has been received, which states that the proposed building site is safe for the use intended, subject to specific geotechnical review and drainage plan submissions during construction, as will be noted and collected during the building permit. A variance is being requested to allow a principal building height of 10.26 meters, and if you'd just remember to our after June 25th, you wouldn't need this variance anymore. But we do require it now as the proponents wanting to move on. The recommendation is that Council approve DP 2024-72 for the construction of a single detached dwelling on Lot 18, District Lot 7258, Caribou District, Plan 152929, and that Council vary Section 9.3.5 of the City of Quesnel zoning bylaw 1880 to increase the maximum principal building height to 10.26 meters, subject to registration of a Section 219 restrictive covenant, which references the Westtrek geotechnical hazard assessment prior to building occupancy, and completing all required additional geotechnical review and drainage plan submissions for submission with the building permit.
Okay, so there you have the recommendation moved by Councillor McKelvey, seconded by Councillor Elliott. Did I see that as a nod for a second? Any discussion? All in favor? Oh, sorry, Councillor Runge.
Thank you. So I guess my question is to Director Turner. Page 76 of 120, the paragraph underneath those fine colors. As I was reading the report, and if you read the report, it is technical in nature and possibly way above my ability of understanding land movement, rock slides, and fluffs, and all those types of things. I did do a course with my daughter, though, so I learned a few things. Anyway, are you comfortable that? Because ultimately, as the approving authorities, ultimately the responsibility to determine if this approach was acceptable with regards to, future land movements with climate change in mind. Because I don't want to put ourselves out and say, yeah, we passed this and then something happens 5 years from now. Like, should that be on the property somewhere, or is that just assumed with this report that we're legally fine?
Thank you, Councillor Runge. The requirements of the Geotechnical Hazard Association is that they do consider climate change. This is we noted and requested confirmation that this is to the parameters of what's required in such a report. So it's acceptable by the association. So sort of beyond our scope to go to further than that.
Okay, thank you for that. Actually, I have a question now I'm looking at my old agenda, but where we're talking about rockfall and under debris slides and under conclusions and recommendations, there's an acronym or an abbreviation, FVRD. Can you help me with that?
Fraser Valley Regional District.
I kind of thought it was, but how does the...
It's the well-known regional district that has some of the best geotechnical summaries and studies, which most geotechnical professionals refer to, because they have developed better policy, let's just say, than we have with respect to, not better policy, more specific policy than we have with respect to these areas.
Yeah, sorry I missed that. I'm working on two agendas here, so I had it marked out on my original agenda, and I don't have it on my new agenda, but I found it. And my second question is at the top of page 78 of 110 of the old agenda, wherein, I'll go to the title of that particular paragraph, changed conditions, 11.1 upslope logging or quarry development, and then at the top of the next page, there's a paragraph that says, as a result, we recommend that terrain stability assessments be undertaken with the risk to the property addressed by anyone who proposes logging or mining, i.e. quarry development upslope of the property. How do we do that, especially in areas where the abutting area may be outside of the city and in the regional district? And, you know, this goes to logging and mining activity on the top side of upland subdivision, and I'll add an editorial comment here that possibly that might have contributed to the watering of that hillside. And I'm just wondering, how would we enforce that?
Okay, well, we have in our area, obviously, it would be in the geotechnical hazard area. These are very good questions, just so you know. Unfortunately, we've had a bit of a run on people logging and excavating in areas that they ought not. We are dealing with a number of different properties to be clear, they can affect other properties, and yeah, it has to be clear. The reality is when people do that, when there is individuals that do take those actions, they don't. A lot of time there's the common thought process that, well, we own the land, so we can do what we want. The reality is you also have the liability for causing repercussions on other neighboring properties. That is in common law, so that would be the requirements. We don't have to monitor this as much as you know. You want to have good policy. You want to be aware of those factors. It's good for our planning folks, our building folks, to be aware of those issues in and around the area. Unfortunately, you know, people do stuff without asking all the time, but there will be repercussions. The owner is currently dealing with some activities, and is the city with some activities that have occurred around here that may affect this report as is, but we still have to wait for that determination to come out. So those things are dealt with.
Okay, thank you for that. Are we ready to vote on the question? We do have it moved and seconded, so no further discussion. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. The next item, now we're going to, we don't have anything pulled out of council information package, and now we're going to go to correspondence, and item M1 is a letter from the Quesnel Downtown Association requesting for closure of 300 block of Reed Street on August 10 from 8 a.m. till 4 p.m. I wonder if we could have that letter brought forward, please.
The Quesnel Downtown Association would like to hold a block party on August 10th on Reed Street. We are writing to ask for permission to block off the 300 block of Reed Street for the hours of 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. The party would be from 11 to 2, but we would require the setup and takedown time.
Okay, so there you have the request. Is there any discussion? Well, let's get the motion on the floor. Moved Councillor McKelvey, seconded Councillor Runge. Any discussion? Seeing none, then, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you for that, Council. Now we go to bylaws. That's and just so that you know, I mean, we did deal with the second item of correspondence when we had the Pride Society delegation earlier in the meeting. So now we go to bylaw number 1959, City of Quesnel Hotel Tax Revitalization Bylaw, final adoption. Councillor Elliott, Councillor Rudenberg. Any discussion? All in favor? Carried. Bylaw number 1962 has already been done. It was addressed under K1. Bylaw number 1963, City of Quesnel Official Community Plan Amendment. Bylaw number 1963, 120 Nadeau Street, final adoption. Councillor McKelvey, Councillor Rudenberg. Any discussion? All in favor? Carried. The next one, and actually the last, no, it's not the last one. Bylaw number 1964, City of Quesnel Zoning Amendment, Bylaw number 1964. And again, this deals with the same property, 120 Nadeau Street. Mover? Moved by Councillor Runge, seconded Councillor Rudenberg. Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. And we have an additional bylaw as a late item, bylaw number 1965, City of Quesnel landfill closure and post-closure obligations reserve fund bylaw number 1965 of 2024, final adoption. Councillor Elliott is moving. Councillor McKelvey is seconding. Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. We have no new business. That concludes the business portion of the meeting. We have no changes to upcoming meeting schedules. We have no changes to committee appointments. Announcements and events. Anyone? Councillor Rudenberg.
Thank you. On your desk, you'll notice a lovely, colorful poster. It is in regards to the Seniors Advocacy Service. They're celebrating their 20 years of service to the community. So on June 6th from 11 till 1, they're going to be serving cake and lemonade. And in case you don't know, Seniors Advocacy Service is, you can find it at the West Park Mall in West Quesnel. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. Anyone? Go ahead, Councillor Elliott.
Thank you. As we heard before, June 15th is Pride Day, so there will be a parade starting at City Hall at noon. Everyone is welcome to attend, and then that will be going down to the park until about 3 p.m. with different vendors and music and food and things like that. Then later in the evening, there will be a burlesque show at the dance studio, followed by a dance party after that. So if you're so inclined and you want to come out and support, June 15th is the day.
Okay, thank you for that. No one else? Oh, Councillor Goulet.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And just June 21st is Indigenous Peoples Day. There will be an event at the Helen Dixon Center. It's open to everybody. There'll be vendors, food, bannock. There'll be all kinds of things happening on the day. So you're welcome to just come through at your leisure. It is open and it will be taking place on June. It starts at about 9 o'clock or 9:15. So hope to see everybody there.
Thank you, and I'll put in a plug for one of my favorite places in the world. Barkerville is open, so I hope we can get out there and enjoy it. I now go to gallery questions, and I know that there's someone that would like to come up. What the deal is that come up and please state your name and your residential address and make sure that you push the button to get the microphone to light up, and please ensure that your question deals with something that was on tonight's agenda. Thank you.
Amber Hartman, 1580 Dodge Street, Suite B. My question is, or comment, I understand the wanting of allowing a month for the flag to be up for the Pride, but being somebody who has MS and recently told that we can't have it up for a month, we can only have it for a week, I'm wondering if you go ahead with the amendment but start it as January 1st, 2025, so as not to make it to exclude anybody.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair, and thanks for the question. And there was no desire to not include everyone, and I mean this can fall on me. I was part of the Policy and Bylaw Committee years ago, and this is from years ago, and it was brought up when I was at the MS flag raising that it could only be up for a week, and I brought it up with staff, brought it up with the Policy and Bylaw, and we're going to address that for the future. So I apologize to MS. I talked directly with Audrey Craigmile about the situation, and it was unfortunate, but we've already agreed to have it up for the 2 weeks at the end of June. So it's not meant to be disrespectful whatsoever. It's in fact meant to be more inclusive, and we'll get it together, and for next year it can be up as long as possible. So I do apologize for that.
I just wanted to make sure, like, not just for me, but for all the groups. So I just want to make sure it was for all that.
Absolutely.
And thank you. Yeah, there was no problem with you. Like, I understand. I go by policies as well, so I understand it. It's not an issue.
And it's going to come back to Councillor Runge's chair as Policy and Bylaw Committee, and I think we'll get it all figured out. It's just one of those, we've got so many policies in the city that have to be revisited, and I think maybe this one should have been highlighted a little earlier, but there's hundreds of them. So we'll get to it.
And thank you all. You all are doing a good job. So thank you so much for all your help. And not an easy city to run.
Thank you, Amber. And yeah, that's why I didn't want to sort of be presumptuous and presuppose the committee. So it is coming up at committee, and we're certainly going to get it sorted out for everyone's benefit. Thank you. Come on up for your question. You need the microphone.
There's a pretty color. Name and address. I told them my name is Sue. How do you do? Okay, the moose. Why don't you get bids on the moving of the moose? That would be a lot cheaper.
Why don't we get
bids on the moose, like people transporting the moose, rather than paying
actually transporting the moose is no big deal. It's up on 2 Mile Flat, so.
Oh, I was thinking it was down on the island.
No, the moose. John Matthews and I went to Victoria and brought the moose home. It's here in town. It's up at Aaron's shop right now, and he's ready to go with his refurbishing and sandblasting and seal coating and the whole bit.
Doing the final touches.
But the actual moving of the moose would be like a 1-hour job. Okay.
And the second one, I understood that the bank that put the queer sidewalk in was going to maintain the sidewalk as well. It wouldn't be the city that, it wasn't put on the city's shoulders, but it was going to be the bank that painted it?
No, there was never any agreement that the cause to which the themed sidewalk is dedicated, it's not the responsibility of the group, i.e. the First Nations or the Pride Society.
So it's ours,
the city has agreed to continue with the maintenance of those crosswalks.
Okay, can I suggest you put the last color in on the rainbow, the indigo that's missing? That would make a lot more groups happy.
Well, I think that the new paint job is going to be fashioned after the new rainbow or the new pride flag.
But why don't we have indigo? That would make a lot of people happy, a lot more people happy. That's the color that's missing. It's purple.
Well, I will say that at the last meeting or at a recent meeting, the Pride Society asked if we could incorporate their new flag into the crosswalk. And correct me if I'm wrong, that's where we're going with it. They never did ask for an indigo bar in that color scheme. And maybe the indigo is already incorporated into the new flag. I'm not sure. Apparently it is.
So that's the complete rainbow then. Okay.
Thank you.
That was my two things.
Good show. Oh, go ahead, Councillor Elliott.
Thank you. And just for clarity, you're not wrong. The bank did put the funding in originally to have it created, but it was agreed that the city would backstop. Yeah. And my understanding too is that the colors are all inclusive as well now.
Okay. Thank you. I was pretty sure the bank said yes.
Okay, thank you for that. Anything else from the gallery? Okay, then I will entertain a motion to adjourn. Please, Councillor Elliott, or pardon me, Councillor Rudenberg, Councillor Runge. I saw 2 hands over there. So any discussion? All in favor? Carried.